This is Kim Seo-jun, a 27-year-old natural awakener burdened by the weight of his reality. He uses his innate super strength not for glory, but for hauling monster carcasses to pay off his late parents' debt. For 9 years, this has been his life, transporting the spoils of other hunters' victories. Yet through all the grime and exhaustion, he clings to a single powerful dream: to become a pro hunter. While on a break, his older co-workers question his ambition to attend a hunter academy. One of them explains that the world has changed. Simply being an awakener is no longer enough to become a hunter. Seo-jun listens intently, learning that these academies are staffed by active and retired professional hunters. They teach invaluable combat experience and survival know-how that one would otherwise have to risk their life to gain. These institutions now produce legions of successful, well-equipped graduates, setting a new standard. A massive gap has formed, leaving the formally educated to stride forward while the uneducated are left behind. But Seo-jun reveals a confident smile, holding a secret of his own. He's finally saved up $40,000, just enough for a single year of academy tuition. While he settles for a cheaper option, a mysterious notification pops up on his phone. It's a strange ad for an unknown institution, Transcendence Academy. The video boasts of ancient professors and a universe-shaking curriculum. It even features a testimonial from a student who became a 9th-class swordmaster. Another graduate, an elderly sage, praises the academy for his ascension. The ad bombards him with promises of a life-changing experience and a path to transcendence. A final, bold claim flashes across the screen before the ad ends. Seo-jun is left utterly stunned, wondering what kind of ridiculous ad he just watched. He scoffs at the sight, but the list of professors with names like Hercules and Merlin gives him pause. His curiosity is piqued by a course on staff and spear techniques taught by the Heaven's Great Sage. Tapping the link, a cartoonish monkey character suddenly pops up on his screen. The figure introduces himself as Sun Wukong, the legendary Monkey King from ancient tales. Seo-jun finds the lecture surprisingly normal, until the instructor decides a live demonstration is in order. The lesson begins with a simple outward deflection, a basic move to disperse an attack. Sun Wukong then gathers immense energy into his staff with a powerful inward twirl. He unleashes a piercing thrust, releasing a cataclysmic blast of raw power. Seo-jun is left speechless, realizing the entire mountain in the video's background has vanished. He desperately tries to dismiss it as CGI, knowing such a feat is impossible even for S-class hunters. A pop-up offers him an S-rank skill if he registers for the lecture. Seo-jun stares at the unbelievable offer, a bead of sweat tracing his temple. He impulsively taps register, only to be blocked by a membership requirement. The site then calculates a bizarre causality fee, landing on a staggering $40,000. He counts the zeros in disbelief, realizing it's the exact amount he has saved. Convinced it's a targeted scam, he dismisses the ridiculous website. Snapped back to reality, his coworker asks about his academy plans. Seo-jun cheerfully confirms he's enrolling in the more practical Arc Hunter Academy. His friend jokes about his future fame as they watch a monster get hoisted away. Seo-jun laughs, promising his friend he'll hunt legendary monsters for him to handle. Seo-jun reflects on the idea that life is a comedy when seen from a distance. But up close, his life was a tragedy, as a flashback reveals a horrific workplace accident. That single shattering moment marked a devastating turning point in his life. He learned a harsh lesson. To truly move forward, one must first endure immense pain. A doctor later explained that his rapid awakener regeneration had crippled him, fusing his nerves and bones incorrectly. His boss callously denied him compensation, caring only about protecting his own reputation. The only solution was a critical surgery costing a staggering $40,000 to prevent permanent disability. This harsh reality forced him to focus on a single long-term goal. He reveals that for 9 long years, he endured his injury while saving every penny. In a devastating twist, he admits the money was for his surgery, leaving him with only a small gift from his friend. Lying in a hospital bed, Seo-jun wonders if he'll ever get a chance to start his life over. Just then, his phone buzzes with a new notification from the mysterious academy. He recognizes the name instantly. It's the bizarre Transcendence Academy from before. He recalls trying to find the website again, but it had vanished without a trace until now. The site recalculates his causality fee, now demanding a much lower, yet still specific, $3,000. He connects the dots. The site seems to know exactly how much money he has at any given moment. With a wry smile, he decides to call its bluff, knowing his bank account is completely empty. To his utter shock, the registration goes through, and the cash from his friend's gift suddenly flies out of its envelope. A formal message welcomes him as the newest member of Transcendence Academy. Before he can process what's happening, a strange energy engulfs his hand, pulling him into the unknown. He stares in disbelief as a miniature person materializes from his phone, confirming his identity. Convinced he's hallucinating from a head injury, he listens as the figure claims to be his mentor. The chibi-like being strikes a proud pose, radiating an almost comical level of confidence. The tiny guide stands expectantly on the phone, his purple eyes gleaming with amusement. Sojun, completely baffled, asks if the being's name is actually Mentor. The figure clarifies the misunderstanding, explaining his role is that of a mentor, not his name. He then proudly reverses course, puffing out his chest and declaring his name actually is Mentor. A sudden realization dawns on Seo-jun as he connects the name to the legendary teacher of the Greek hero Odysseus. The mentor smugly confirms this, adding that the long-transcended Odysseus still contacts him occasionally. With a sudden shift in tone, he reveals the Academy's true purpose, to teach students how to transcend their very existence. Seo-jun struggles to grasp that this academy is for transcended beings, not hunters. The tiny mentor scoffs, explaining that comparing a hunter to a transcended being is an insult to their power. Still unconvinced, Seo-jun brings up the might of S-class hunters, the pinnacle of human strength. Mentor casually dismisses S-class hunters as trivial and presents him with an on-screen form to complete. The phone displays a transcended aptitude test with fields like combat, medicine, and mind. The guide explains the test will determine his potential path and create a personalized curriculum. After being urged to answer honestly, Seo-jun instinctively chooses the path of combat. But as he tries to proceed, his finger freezes, unable to move to the next step. He stares at the unresponsive screen in confusion while Mentor asks what the holdup is. Seo-jun admits his dilemma, completely stumped by the test's second question. The second question asks him to select his skill level, with options ranging from splitting mountains to being the strongest in history. Mentor cheerfully notes that many students get stuck here, advising him to simply pick what he can literally do. The tiny guide systematically asks if he can perform any of the godlike feats, to which Seo-jun can only deny. Confused by Seo-jun's lack of power, Mentor asks about pulling out mountains, prompting Seo-jun to question the test's sanity. The guide is utterly baffled by Seo-jun's weakness, openly wondering how he even qualified for the academy. Despite his shock, Mentor gives a reassuring wink, promising that the academy never kicks out a member. With renewed cheer, the tiny being urges him to push through and finish the rest of the lengthy questionnaire. After what feels like an eternity, Mentor gives a round of applause, signaling the completion of the test. Seo-jun slumps over in exhaustion, completely drained after answering a grueling 108 questions. The guide announces his profile is now under analysis, promising to recommend lectures for him soon. Mentor notes Seo-jun's preference for spearmanship, suggesting Kai cultivation would be a better fit. He dismisses a lecture from Heaven's great sage as far too advanced for someone so weak. Instead, he presents 2 introductory courses taught by the legendary figures Siddhartha Gautama and Chiron. The tiny guide correctly deduces that Seo-jun is not just physically injured, but also emotionally scarred. He recommends the lecture by Siddhartha Gautama, a name that stops Seo-jun in his tracks. Seo-jun is stunned to learn the instructor is indeed the one famously known as Buddha. Mentor explains this renowned instructor's mentality lecture is a required subject, offered for free to save poor souls. A notification offers an SSS rank skill, Unwavering Heart, as a reward for completing the lecture. The guide cheerfully warns him that the lecture might make him feel like he's losing his mind. Before Seo-jun can protest, Mentor vanishes in a flash of light, promising to return later. With a sigh of resignation, he decides to watch the recommended lecture. Tapping the screen, he initiates the lecture from the mysterious pop-up. The lecture begins, revealing a serene, golden-skinned figure who poses a profound question about reality. He stares in disbelief, comparing the figure on screen to a living, breathing, golden statue. The instructor continues, delivering a mind-bending lesson on the non-existence of the self. The abstract concepts immediately overwhelm him, finding the lecture impossibly difficult. The serene instructor poses another baffling question about the nature of existence and definition. He's suddenly plunged into a cosmic vision, realizing this is the mental trial Mentor had warned him about. The cosmic instructor's form envelops him, delivering the ultimate revelation. He is not in the world, he is the world. This profound, reality-shattering concept pushes his mind to the absolute brink. A system notification reveals he's only completed a fraction of a percent of the lecture. The mental toll is so immense that his very soul seems to float out of his body. 1 week later, his doctor is utterly astounded by his miraculous recovery rate. The veteran doctor admits he's never witnessed such rapid healing, even from an awakener. Seo-jun smirks, confirming that his newfound vitality is very, very real. He credits the mind-bending lecture for his tranquil heart and accelerated healing, despite its slow progress. While the doctor advises caution, Seo-jun can only imagine the power he'll wield upon completing the course. He cheerfully agrees to stay longer, now a firm believer in the Academy's power. Feeling fully recovered, he pulls up the second recommended course, a combat lecture from Chiron. He notes the A-class reward, realizing the SSS rank skill from the first lecture was an insane outlier. The lecture begins with a shadowy figure introducing himself as the legendary Chiron. A silhouette reveals his true form, a centaur, half human and half horse. He's hailed as the master who trained nearly every hero in Greek mythology. This course, taught by the teacher of heroes, aims to guide students to the first stage of transcendence. Seo-jun, now accustomed to the impossible, calmly accepts that he's about to be taught by the actual Chiron. He leans in, ready to learn the first step on his path to becoming a transcended being. Chiron's calm demeanor suddenly vanishes, replaced by a grimace of intense fury. With glowing eyes, the instructor unleashes a furious, soul-shaking command directly through the screen. The sheer force of the command jolts Seo-jun upright in his bed, his body moving against his will. The entire hospital building trembles as Chiron's powerful voice echoes, forcing Seo-jun to his feet. His world turns upside down as he stares blankly, completely disoriented by the force. He finds himself flat on the floor, knocked over by the sheer intensity of the command. A new system notification appears, announcing the arrival of his first daily individual task. The task is a brutal training regimen straight out of a superhero's playbook. He stares at the list on his phone, utterly baffled by the impossible demands. Seo-jun scoffs at the absurdity, recognizing the workout is far beyond a simple daily routine. He recalls his doctor's strict orders to rest and avoid any strenuous activity. Deciding to ignore the insane task, he tries to skip ahead, only to be blocked by the system. He tries again with a forced smile, but the same unyielding notification denies his request. The warning message multiplies around him, leaving him to wonder how the Academy is monitoring his every move. Slumped in his hospital gown, Seo-jun hangs his head in utter defeat. He concedes to the system, deciding it's better to rest than fight an impossible battle. Switching back to the mental lecture, his finger freezes as he spots an unexpected detail. A timer on the screen reveals a shocking truth. His free pass expires in just 83 days. The sudden deadline sends him into a panic, realizing his time is far more limited than he thought. He tries to rationalize the situation, admitting a time limit makes sense for an academy. Now stretching outside, he calculates that he started with a 90-day pass and has already lost a week. A critical realization dawns on him. He must fully comprehend the lectures to make any progress. He checks his phone, confirming his progress on the mental lecture is still stuck at a pathetic 1.3%. He reflects on the past week, having rewatched the same lecture repeatedly with almost nothing to show for it. The daunting deadline crushes his spirit as he doubts he can finish the lecture in time. He begins stretching, concluding the free pass is just a trial and that his old life never required formal exercise. He begins his push-ups, reflecting on his 9 years of hauling heavy monster corpses for pro hunters. A flashback reveals his old job carrying 70-kilo monster corpses, which served as his daily workout. Relying on his sturdy awakener physique, he powers through the pain and completes an incredible 300 push-ups. Feeling a surge of pride, he decides his 9 years of struggle have more than prepared him for this task. His pride evaporates when he checks the task list, which only shows 81 out of 300 push-ups completed. Completely baffled, he tries to figure out the system's bizarre and unforgiving math. He gets back into position, determined to test his theory on why the reps weren't counting. He executes a single, perfect push-up, and the counter finally moves, ticking up to 82. The truth dawns on him: the system demands absolute perfection in his form. He grinds out the remaining push-ups, his body screaming with every perfectly executed repetition. The pull-ups prove just as unforgiving, demanding flawless form for every single rep. Sit-ups and 1,000 squats follow, a mind-numbing grind of pure exertion. The final challenge is a punishing 30-kilometer run that pushes him beyond his limits. Against all odds, the system finally confirms his completion of the entire brutal daily task. His body gives out, and he collapses onto the pavement, becoming a strange spectacle for the locals. He despairs at this daily torment, while a smug Chiron reminds him it's his problem to solve. The next day at the hospital, an elderly patient gawks at him in utter disbelief. She marvels at his incredible recovery, but he just confidently heads out, ready for another day of hellish training. The elderly woman praises his youthful energy, while another patient grumpily clears his throat. His attention is caught by a breaking news report about a 4-star monster appearing in Seoul. The news reveals a corpse delivery service accidentally brought the sleeping behemoth into the city. He recalls the near disaster, where a lone awakener stepped in to prevent any loss of life. The hero is identified as a Gaon Academy cadet, earning praise from the elderly patient for saving lives. The woman marvels at the grand deeds of hunters, lost in thought. She suddenly turns to Seo-jun, remembering he's also an awakener and putting him on the spot. She eagerly asks if he'll also become a famous hunter on TV, making him visibly uncomfortable. He internally dismisses the naive question, knowing the harsh reality of becoming a top-tier hunter. He turns to respond, finding himself under the continued glare of the grumpy man in the wheelchair. Seo-jun awkwardly explains that becoming a pro hunter is a 1-in-a-million shot. The grumpy man interrupts, his expression filled with disdain as he questions Seo-jun's ambitions. He bluntly tells Seo-jun to give up, dismissing his training as a pointless effort for someone who isn't even a cadet. The man's harsh words trigger a memory of Seo-jun's grueling past, telling him not to waste his youth on a pipe dream. A fire ignites in Seo-jun's eyes, the condescending advice striking a deep, defiant chord within him. His fist clenches in silent fury as the elderly woman tries to intervene, but the man dismisses her concern. Seo-jun coldly retorts that he will be the one to decide his own path, cutting off the man's self-righteous lecture. Leaning in with an intense glare, he tells the man to focus on his own life instead of meddling in his. The man is left utterly speechless, stunned into silence by the unexpected and fierce rebuttal. Recovering from his shock, the man flies into a rage, furious at what he perceives as a young punk's disrespect. Seo-jun storms off, his posture radiating pure, unadulterated defiance. He internally scoffs at the old man's words, knowing that at Transcendence Academy, his dream is within reach. Fueled by anger, he pushes himself harder, his eyes burning with a new resolve. The grumpy man can only watch as Seo-jun runs off, his determination to become a hunter now stronger than ever. Elsewhere, a mysterious young woman with dark hair expresses her own weariness with the hunter's life. She questions the purpose of her academy as she faces down 2 ferocious, energy-wreathed beasts. With a flash of her blade, she cuts through the monsters, lamenting the academy's lack of cadets and resources. She lets out a weary sigh, her sword cleaving through another foe in a flash of light. Standing victorious over the slain creatures, she looks completely drained and utterly annoyed by the constant struggle. The scene shifts to a quiet apartment building at night, marking the end of another grueling day. Seo-jun triumphantly collapses onto his bed, finally back in the comfort of his own home. He reflects on his 2-week hospital stay, finding solace in his modest apartment. Lying in bed, his mind immediately shifts to the daunting tasks ahead. A dripping faucet underscores his anxiety as he realizes the hunter exam is only a year away. His focus shifts to his finances, wondering how much money he has left to survive. Seen from outside, the barred window of his small room emphasizes his isolation. Overwhelmed by his circumstances, he comes to the bleak conclusion that he truly has nothing. But a sudden realization jolts him upright. He actually completed his daily tasks today. He pulls up the system, theorizing that finishing early might finally unlock the next phase of his training. The system immediately responds with an invitation to the next lecture, much to his delight. A smug Chiron appears, giving his condescending approval for Seo-jun's progress. The centaur mockingly informs him he's finally strong enough to take his first steps. Chiron explains this is the first true step on the path of a transcended being. With a serious expression, he reveals the first lesson is to master the concept of sense. A system window immediately pops up, showing the lecture is already underway. The next morning, Seo-jun finds himself at a construction site, completely underwhelmed. He's immediately berated by the site foreman, but endures it out of financial desperation. Seo-jun shrewdly guesses the foreman's anger is just a cover for his guilt over a past incident. It's revealed his new job comes with humble lodgings, a shipping container. He's trapped in a frustrating cycle. Working for money leaves no time to actually train. He stresses over his new predicament. No daily tasks means no new lectures from Chiron. Deciding to review the last lesson, he pulls up his phone to recall the lecture on sense. The system review begins, explaining the absolute role the five senses play in combat. It lists the traditional senses while showing the foreman looming in the background. Chiron's voice explains that the normal process of perception and reaction is far too slow for a real fight. The centaur declares he will teach Seo-jun how to bypass this slow, deliberate process. The key, Chiron reveals, is to awaken a power completely separate from the five senses. Seo-jun's eyes gleam with focus as the lecture introduces the concept of the sixth sense. As the lecture defines this sense as intuition, the foreman suddenly grabs him from behind. In a flash, Seo-jun instinctively reacts, leaving both himself and the foreman completely stunned. The foreman demands to know how Seo-jun dodged him, questioning if he has eyes in the back of his head. A mental image of Chiron gives a smug thumbs up as the foreman snaps at Seo-jun to get back to work. The foreman's anger turns to concern, worried Seo-jun will injure himself carrying a massive 200-kilo load. Seo-jun brushes off the warning with a confident smile, telling the foreman to load him up. He then strolls away with the impossibly heavy bags, carrying them as if they weigh nothing at all. The foreman and another worker can only stare in utter disbelief at Seo-jun's superhuman strength. Shaken but convinced, the foreman dismisses his concern and calls for a break, needing a moment to process what he saw. Seo-jun himself is puzzled, feeling an inexplicable surge of energy the more he works. Realizing he can combine work and training, he starts performing his daily squats while carrying the heavy load. Exhausted but hopeful, he pulls out his phone to see if his unconventional workout registered with the system. Seo-jun stares at his phone in utter shock, his eyes wide with disbelief. The system reveals a game-changing update. Each weighted squat now counts as 3. He quickly deduces that adding weight multiplies the effectiveness of his training. A brilliant, almost maniacal grin spreads across his face as he realizes the potential of this discovery. He immediately decides to take on the other workers' heavy loads to maximize his gains. Ignoring the bewildered stares, he starts performing his daily tasks right there on the job site. He pushes himself even harder, realizing the heavier the load, the faster his progress. Seo-jun celebrates his perfect plan to earn money and train simultaneously, a true 2-for-1 deal. Back in his room, he collapses onto his bed, completely drained from the day's extreme workout. He smirks, recalling the foreman's horrified expression, but admits his new training method is brutally exhausting. He proudly checks his phone, seeing that his brutal workday has also cleared all his daily tasks. With the night still young, he checks his lecture progress and feels it's too early to call it a day. He considers reviewing his current lessons, but decides a new lecture would be a more productive use of his time. Mindful of his tight budget, he pulls up a list of free lectures to maximize his training without spending a dime. His finger stops on a particularly bold claim, a lecture promising the power to uproot mountains. The instructor's name, Xiang Yu, catches him by surprise, making him wonder if it's the legendary Hegemon King. An image of the legendary warrior appears in his mind, a historical figure renowned for his overwhelming power. Seeing the chance to learn mountain-pulling spearmanship for free, he immediately taps the register button. His new instructor materializes, immediately mocking him and any other students for their incompetence. Seo-jun flinches, completely blindsided by the instructor's incredibly hostile introduction. With a vicious grin, Xiang Yu declares he'll teach them, dismissing any need for complex techniques. His first and only command is to swing a spear relentlessly until its concept is etched into their very being. The system immediately issues a new personal daily task tailored to the lecture's brutal simplicity. Seo-jun stares at his phone, sweating, as he's assigned the monumental task of swinging a spear 5,000 times. He slumps to the floor, completely bewildered that the entire lecture consisted of just a few aggressive sentences. A tiny, mocking image of Xiang Yu appears on his phone, taunting him to just get on with the task. Gazing at the night sky, Seo-jun sighs in exasperation, wondering why all his training has become a series of grueling daily tasks. The next day, the foreman nervously assures a professional-looking woman that his construction site has a perfect safety record. The woman, identified as B-Class Hunter Park Seo-yoon, reveals she's there to investigate a recent behemoth incident. The foreman's confident demeanor shatters as he nervously agrees to her demand for a thorough inspection. Seo-jun overhears the other workers gossiping about the foreman's unusually submissive behavior. He freezes as a worker identifies the woman as Park Seo-yoon, granddaughter of the legendary Sword Star. An imposing image of the sword star, Park Min-chul, flashes in his mind, radiating immense power. A flashback transports the story 100 years into the past, to the chaotic era when Gates first appeared. In those early days, brutal monsters roamed the streets freely, with no system in place to stop them. It was a desperate time when the very survival of humanity was hanging by a thread. Amidst the chaos, a young hero emerges, cutting down a monster to protect helpless civilians. A small child, saved from the attack, stares in wide-eyed wonder at their powerful protector. This young hero was none other than Park Min-chul, an awakener who fought in that brutal world. He was one of the legendary figures who fought to reclaim civilization from the brink of collapse. The flashback concludes, cementing Park Min-chul's legacy as a true hero who saved the world. Even now, as an old man, the Sword Star remains a formidable heavyweight on the global stage. Seo-jun, however, casually dismisses the legendary tale, focused only on his immediate goals. He snapped back to reality, straining under the weight of a monster corpse while counting his reps. Park Seo-yun stares in confusion, while the foreman advises her to ignore the man who's been acting like a lunatic for a week. She questions Seo-jun's sanity as he relentlessly continues his bizarre, number-shouting routine. Seo-jun yells to the foreman, whose name is also Min-chul, that he's dropping off the monster's body. The weary foreman simply accepts the absurd situation with a resigned nod. As another worker complains, Seo-jun pushes on, determined to see his grueling task through to the end. The massive horned head of the beast highlights the incredible burden he's carrying. Seo-jun desperately tries to justify his bizarre behavior, but the foreman completely dismisses his claims. The foreman sighs, warning Seo-jun he'll get hurt, while Seo-jun happily promises to bring even more corpses. A smug foreman stands amidst a mountain of monster bodies, a testament to Seo-jun's insane work ethic. As the foreman stands over the pile, one of the supposedly dead monsters begins to stir. Seo-jun whips his head around, instantly sensing the sudden, dangerous shift in the atmosphere. The monster erupts from the pile, launching a surprise attack directly at the unsuspecting foreman. The beast roars, its glowing eyes fixed on its target as it lunges for the kill. Seo-jun can only watch in absolute terror as the foreman is caught in the monster's deadly assault. Park Seo-yun, who was just leaving, pauses as the sudden chaos behind her catches her attention. She recalls her relief at escaping the foreman's fawning, completely unaware of the life-or-death struggle unfolding. Her inner monologue reveals her deep frustration with the constant attention she receives. She overhears the workers confirming her identity as the Sword Star's granddaughter. Despite their whispers, her enhanced hearing picks up every word of their gossip. The workers express their surprise that she's only a B rank given her famous lineage. For Seo-yun, her grandfather's heroic name is nothing more than a burdensome label. She recalls her childhood, trained relentlessly but never able to meet the impossible standards set by her grandfather. The constant pressure led her to dream of a different life, one as an educator. A painful memory surfaces of her grandfather furiously rejecting her desire to become a teacher. She remembers how her family legacy prevented her from ever pursuing a normal life. Ultimately, she was forced to compromise by enrolling in the Hunter Academy instead. She recalls the students' bitter disappointment upon learning the Sword Star wasn't their teacher. Seo-yun tried to explain she was the instructor, but the cadets felt completely tricked. Once the truth was revealed, her fledgling Hunter Academy was doomed to fail. Her desperate attempts to salvage the situation were met with cold indifference. The entire student body walked out, leaving her utterly alone in the spotlight. Her grandfather's immense influence had inadvertently sabotaged her dream from the start. She realized they had enrolled for his name, not for her skills as a teacher. The academy is now a forgotten place, its few remaining students driven away by her family's shadow. Lost in frustration, she wishes for a single dedicated cadet, oblivious to the foreman falling behind her. Her bitter thoughts are violently interrupted as a worker sprints past, screaming for everyone to run. Seo-yun is snapped from her bitter thoughts, her face a mask of confusion as she registers the panic. She turns just in time to see the reanimated Manticore standing over the fallen foreman. Seo-jun frantically tries to understand how the supposedly dead monster could have revived. The terrified foreman, pinned beneath the beast, selflessly screams for Seo-jun to save himself. But Seo-jun is paralyzed by the chilling realization that the man is about to die. The absolute certainty of the foreman's fate hits him with overwhelming force. He knows a normal person stands no chance against a 4-star Manticore that even pro-hunters struggle with. A flicker of hope appears as he remembers the B-rank hunter, Park Seo-yun, was just nearby. He quickly realizes that if she's already left, it's too late and the foreman is doomed. Deciding he can't just stand by, Seo-jun takes a determined step forward, ready to intervene himself. His mind screams with urgency, knowing someone must act now to save the foreman. The Manticore practically licks its chops, savoring the final moment before its deadly strike. Seo-jun feels a wave of helplessness, desperately wondering who could possibly intervene. With a terrifying roar, the beast lunges, its jaws wide open to deliver the finishing blow. In a split second, a hand snatches a heavy metal pipe, refusing to let the foreman die. Seo-jun tosses his phone aside, fully committing himself to the life-or-death confrontation. He lets out a furious cry, his face contorted with effort as he prepares to swing. Leaping into action, Seo-jun intercepts the Manticore, putting himself directly in the line of fire. After landing a solid hit, he yells at the foreman to take the chance and escape to safety. The foreman urges Seo-jun to flee as well, warning that they will both be overtaken if he stays. Seo-jun plants his feet, declaring that he is the only one who can stand in the monster's way. His mind races, realizing his only strategy is to stall for time until professional hunters arrive. He stands alone, a tiny figure before the colossal, menacing shadow of the Manticore. Internally, he screams at himself to overcome his fear, forcing his trembling body to move. A strange, serene memory surfaces, reminding him of a profound universal teaching. He recalls a lesson about observing the world's origins, a teaching from Siddhartha Gautama. Unbeknownst to him, the real Manticore stalks closer, ready to strike while he's lost in thought. The memory continues, instructing him to embrace the universe by letting go of his emotions. As the beast prepares to charge, he focuses on calming his terrified, shaking heart. With newfound composure, he takes a steady step forward, his fear slowly beginning to subside. The Manticore roars, ready to tear him apart, but Seo-jun stands his ground. He knows that hesitation means death. He must trust his instincts completely. The beast's claw flashes past his face, a hair's breadth from ending him. Relying on pure reflex, he twists his body out of the way of the deadly swipe. Before he can recover, the monster's venomous tail whips around for a second strike. Seo-jun jams the metal pipe into the ground, preparing an unconventional counter. Using the pipe as a lever, he launches himself over the tail as it crashes into the earth. The Manticore is momentarily bewildered, its two heads struggling to track his sudden movement. Soaring through the air, he spots a potential weak point on the monster's back. Now airborne and defenseless, he frantically wonders how to exploit the opening. Another memory surfaces, teaching him that true power isn't about brute force. He realizes it's the momentum of pure will, a belief so strong it can shatter mountains. With newfound clarity, he tightens his grip on the pipe, preparing to channel this very principle. A surge of energy fills him as he locks onto his target, convinced he can land a decisive blow. His conviction hardens into an absolute necessity. He knows he must succeed. The Manticore senses the shift in his aura, its predatory gaze fixed on the descending threat. It unleashes a defiant roar, meeting his mountain-splitting will with its own raw power. Seo-jun becomes a conduit of pure energy, the simple pipe transforming into a glowing blade of light. The radiant weapon descends with perfect precision, cleaving through the air towards the beast's head. The impact creates a massive shockwave, engulfing the entire area in a blinding explosion. Seo-jun and the workers are jolted by the deafening sound, rushing toward the source of the commotion. Her eyes widen in utter disbelief as she takes in the impossible scene before her. Through the settling dust, a lone figure stands firm, still clutching the metal pipe. The smoke clears to reveal Seo-jun standing triumphantly over the defeated Manticore. He looks down with a calm, almost detached expression, assessing the outcome of his strike. The reality of his own actions suddenly hits him, his composure shattering into pure shock. Utterly baffled, he scratches his head, questioning how his desperate gamble actually succeeded. A system notification appears, revealing his progress in various legendary teachings has skyrocketed. Seo-jun stands frozen, her mind struggling to comprehend the impossible event that just unfolded. She stares in awe, unable to believe a simple worker just took down a monster with a metal pipe. Seo-jun lets out a startled cry, finally processing the aftermath of the battle. He immediately turns his attention to the foreman, his concern overriding his own shock. While he checks on the foreman, Seo-jun's gaze remains fixed on him, her mind racing. He brushes off his incredible display of power, insisting the injured foreman seek medical attention. The other workers swarm him in a celebratory embrace, hailing him as their hero. Seo-jun watches the scene with a sudden intense focus, realizing she's found her target. The narrative officially designates him as the proper cadet, hinting at a greater destiny. As the crew disperses, they're sworn to secrecy about the day's unbelievable events. Later, while walking alone, Seo-jun glances at his phone and stops in his tracks. The system confirms his progress has massively increased, far beyond what simple listening could achieve. He theorizes that his progress skyrocketed because he applied the teachings in a real battle against the Manticore. A realization dawns on him. Practical application is the key to mastering the lectures, but there's a catch. He mulls over his predicament, knowing he can't raid dungeons without a hunter's license from a proper academy. A voice suddenly calls out and he turns to find Seo-yun approaching him from behind. She asks for a moment of his time, and he instantly recognizes her as the granddaughter of the legendary Sword Star. Puzzled by her interest, he cautiously agrees to listen to what she has to say. With a determined look, Seo-yun decides to be direct with her proposition. She boldly invites him to meet her grandfather, a highly influential figure. Seo-jun responds with a completely deadpan expression, giving her a firm rejection. As he walks away, eager to get back to his studies, Seo-yun is left utterly speechless by his refusal. Seo-yun, a 31-year-old elite, is utterly flustered by his straightforward dismissal. He brutally deconstructs her offer, calling her academy a paper-only institution with no students. Her mind flashes back to his training, the impossible feat of defeating a 4-star Manticore. Despite his rejections, she deduces his ultimate goal is to become a hunter. She desperately pitches the academy's resources, but he coldly informs her he has no need for their guidance. His unwavering refusal pushes her to the absolute brink of her patience. She plays her trump card, offering him direct tutelage from her legendary grandfather, the Sword Star. In a move of unbelievable arrogance, he rejects the offer coveted by every pro-hunter and simply walks away. Her mind screams in defiance. She absolutely cannot let him get away. As a final, desperate plea, she asks about the written test, but he dismisses her concern with unshakable confidence. She desperately points out he can't join raids without an academy affiliation, a fatal flaw in his plan. He scoffs, questioning if her academy even has the authority to grant licenses, but she frantically confirms they do. His steps finally halt as he considers the logistical nightmare of his situation. Sensing an opening, she quickly offers him a private training space, promising not to meddle. As a final gambit, she offers him a full scholarship, waiving all tuition fees. He turns, a shrewd look in his eyes, and asks what she expects in return for such a generous deal. Seo-yun lays out her simple conditions. He must compete and promote the academy's name. He internally weighs the offer, admitting it's a perfect solution, but questions her extreme desperation. With unwavering conviction, she declares it's because she recognizes his incredible potential. Her gaze intensifies, revealing a steely determination to secure him for her academy, no matter the cost. He considers her offer with a smug smile, finally admitting it's not a bad deal. With his decision made, he extends his hand and formally introduces himself. Seo-yun eagerly accepts the handshake, sealing their new game-changing partnership. The narrative foretells their destinies will become deeply intertwined in the future. The following day, Seo-jun receives an unexpected call while on his way out. It's the foreman, frantically asking how he managed to get their old work leader replaced overnight. A flashback reveals Seo-jun simply requested not to work with the leader again, never expecting him to be fired. He shrugs it off, glad that the unpleasant leader is gone, and the crew is happier for it. The foreman's question is answered as Seo-jun arrives at the Dream Hunter Academy, where Seo-yun is waiting. True to her word, she immediately hands him his brand new temporary hunter's license. He formally thanks her for the license, which she notes was issued with surprising speed. He examines his new D-rank temporary license, feeling the weight of his first real step toward his dream. Brimming with ambition, he asks her to teach him the methods for raiding dungeons. She cryptically tells him there's no need for that, leaving him completely baffled. Instead of a lecture, she leads him to a weapon rack and tells him to choose a spear for immediate practical training. A sly, knowing smile spreads across her face, hinting she has everything planned out. She reveals her plan. She's already arranged a live raid for him at a nearby dungeon gate. Inside the dungeon, he effortlessly dispatches a monster with a single, precise spear thrust. He confronts Seo-yun for following him inside, but she calmly explains she's just supervising the academy's only student. She playfully frames her presence as a special one-on-one lesson, an honor he seems to grudgingly accept. She reminds him this is his first official raid, warning him not to underestimate the 2-star kobolds. He moves forward, internally noting the monster's mana defense was just as weak as the Manticore's. His eyes glow as he realizes his unique attacks bypass the mana barriers that stop normal weapons. A kobold ambushes him from the side, but his enhanced senses allow him to react instantly. He effortlessly dodges the leaping monster, his eyes locked on his target. With a powerful swing of his spear, he counters the attack, proving his manaless fighting style is lethally effective. He checks his phone and beams with excitement as his lecture progress rates climb with each kill. He calculates that while the gains are smaller than the Manticore fight, the consistent progress makes it worthwhile. A grin spreads across his face as he informs a slightly wary Seo-yoon that he's about to pick up the pace. He dives into a horde of monsters, realizing that dungeon raiding is the perfect real-life equivalent of grinding in a video game. Seo-yoon reflects on Seo-jun, admitting she always knew he was a peculiar individual. But watching him stare intently at his phone, she realizes his eccentricity is beyond anything she could have imagined. To her, he's been staring at a completely blank screen for hours, a sight that deeply unnerves her. She recalls his dungeon performance, still unable to comprehend how he moved with such impossible speed and power. She remembers him effortlessly dispatching monsters like a seasoned veteran, despite it being his very first raid. Instead of paying for corpse retrieval, he insisted on carrying them out himself to save money, turning it into a bizarre workout. Her troubled thoughts are interrupted as he suddenly leaps to his feet, having a dramatic realization while looking at his phone. He bolts out of the academy at the stroke of midnight, leaving a bewildered Seo-yoon to question her life choices. Meanwhile, Seo-jun is absolutely beaming, his master plan having gone off without a hitch. He checks his bank account, overjoyed to see he's earned a small fortune from just one day of raiding. He smirks, recalling how he personally dismantled the monster corpses, a gruesome task that saved him a fortune. However, he realizes this DIY approach is too time-consuming and prevented him from completing his lectures. A new plan forms. He'll partner with his old foreman, creating a new business venture for a man he trusts. With that settled, he crosses the street, his mind now focused on how to best invest his nearly $10,000 earnings. His satisfaction fades as he remembers his lecture progress has stalled, with the last monster kill yielding no gains. He yearns for a faster path to power, dreaming of reaching the legendary strength of the great sage, Sun Wukong. Standing alone under the city lights, a profound idea begins to take shape in his mind. The name Sun Wukong sparks a sudden brilliant epiphany, startling a nearby pedestrian. He remembers the advanced lecture he could only preview before, realizing his new funds can finally unlock it. A greedy, determined grin spreads across his face as he prepares to invest every last cent into his own power. He confidently taps the button to register for the advanced lecture, ready to invest his earnings. His excitement evaporates upon seeing the registration fee, a jaw-dropping $27 million. The astronomical price leaves him utterly speechless and confused. His grand plan instantly derailed. His mind reels, unable to process the sheer absurdity of the cost for a single lecture. Crushed by the impossible fee, he sinks to the ground in despair as onlookers give him a wide berth. Realizing the lecture is out of reach, he shifts his focus, searching for an alternative path to power on his phone. His intense search pays off as he discovers a new feature, completely oblivious to the concerned pedestrians around him. He finds the Transcendent Shop, an exclusive marketplace for items made by the Academy's own students. His shock returns, this time fueled by sheer disbelief at the shop's unbelievable inventory. He scrolls through a list of legendary artifacts from elixirs to mythical weapons, all seemingly for sale. He stares in disbelief, realizing the shop is filled with mythic-level items disguised as mere training equipment. Even to his untrained eye, the sheer power of the listed artifacts is undeniably potent. A chilling thought dawns on him. These legendary weapons were forged by the Transcended themselves. His despair turns to elation as he sees a clear path to obtaining a mythic weapon he can wield right away. Without hesitation, he selects a copy of the legendary Lance of Longinus and confirms the purchase. A system window appears, calculating a price based on a mysterious causality rate. The final price notification pops up, its contents remaining a shocking mystery for now. Back at the academy, a bewildered Seo-yoon counts his reps, confused by his sudden frantic energy. She watches him perform push-ups with a fiery aura, sensing a new level of desperation driving him. His mind races as he pushes himself, justifying the immense cost of his purchase as a calculated risk for ultimate power. He screams internally as the phone reveals the Lance of Longinus costs a staggering $100,000. He recalls a system notification that strictly forbids reselling the item, crushing his hopes of a quick profit. Dejected, he realizes all his plans are blocked by a lack of funds, only to be interrupted by Seo Yoon. She asks him about the academy contention, a term that leaves him completely clueless. He admits his ignorance, prompting her to launch into an explanation of the prestigious event. She describes it as a fierce competition, where various academies battle to establish their dominance. She hands him a file for the 4th level contention, clarifying it's a direct measure of the academy's strength. He learns that strong performances in this 4th-tier league can lead to opportunities in higher-level competitions. Seo Yoon reveals the high stakes, explaining that academies invest heavily in their top students for prestige and government approval. With a confident smile, she officially invites him to be Dream Hunter Academy's representative in the upcoming competition. Seo Yoon's eyes gleam as he realizes the academy contention is the perfect chance to boost his lecture progress. He enthusiastically agrees to participate, framing it as a great way to gain experience. So Yoon is taken aback by his sudden acceptance, reminding him it was already part of their deal as he asks for details. She explains the contention is judged on 2 parts: dungeon raids and duels between cadets. A wave of unease hits him as he realizes his combat experience is limited to monsters, with 0 practice against other people. Determined to prepare properly, he wonders aloud if there's anyone available to help him train. A new idea sparks in his mind as he turns his gaze directly towards the still puzzled Seo Yoon. He boldly asks Seo Yoon to be his sparring partner, leaving her utterly stunned by the request. Annoyed by his apparent taunt, she grabs a set of practice swords, her frustration mounting. He sees this as a golden opportunity, knowing she's not just any B rank but a hunter trained by the legendary Sword Star. A powerful blue aura erupts from Seo Yoon as she prepares to teach the overconfident cadet a lesson. Seo Yoon, however, is thrilled, eager to finally witness the true power of a B-rank hunter firsthand. He confidently confirms he knows her rank, his determined gaze showing he's not intimidated. Taking a ready stance with a practice staff, he playfully asks her to go easy on him. With a sigh of resignation, Seo Yoon concedes the first attack, daring him to make a move. Without a moment's hesitation, he lunges forward, launching an immediate and aggressive strike. Seo Yoon remains completely unfazed, her expression revealing she saw this predictable move coming. She effortlessly intercepts his clumsy attack, noting the sheer awkwardness of his form. Her expert eyes analyze his footwork, identifying it as fast but incredibly sloppy. She easily deflects his telegraphed strike, countering his predictable attack with practiced ease. She recalls his dungeon performance, concluding she may have overestimated his skills against a human opponent. Annoyed by his audacity, she channels her aura into the practice sword, determined to end the spar quickly. She prepares to unleash a single overwhelming attack to put him in his place. Believing the match is over, her confident expression falters as something goes completely wrong. To her utter astonishment, he successfully blocks her powerful mana-infused strike with his simple wooden staff. He grits his teeth, his arms trembling as he struggles to hold his ground against her immense B-rank power. Seo Yoon is completely baffled, unable to comprehend how he stopped a blow that should have shattered his weapon. Her plan was to disarm him in an instant, leaving him completely vulnerable to a final strike. Instead of breaking, he expertly uses the momentum of the block to create distance and reset his stance. The unexpected turn of events leaves her momentarily stunned while he catches his breath, ready for the next exchange. A sly grin spreads across his face as he decides to stop holding back. Wiping a trickle of blood from his lip, he declares that the real fight starts now. Seo Yoon is suddenly on the defensive, shocked as the momentum shifts and his attacks become dangerously sharp. His movements are now fluid and precise, a complete transformation from his earlier sloppy form. A memory of his training flashes in his mind, recalling the first lesson: make predictable, obvious attacks. The lesson then teaches him to mix in feints, a tactic designed for opponents who can reason and adapt. He internalizes the harsh reminder that a real opponent will never just stand still and take a hit. He applies the strategy, forcing Seo Yoon into a predictable defense by using a series of obvious attacks. Following his training, he uses her block to spin his staff, creating a new angle of attack and throwing her off balance. The strategy works perfectly, leaving Seo Yoon completely exposed and unable to defend against his next move. His training's final lesson flashes in his mind, instructing him to seize the perfect moment. He channels all his power into one decisive strike, his eyes glowing with raw intensity. Seo Yoon's instincts scream danger as she sees the overwhelming attack reflected in her eyes. A massive blast of energy slams into the training room floor, narrowly missing her. Standing in the aftermath, Seo-yoon is left utterly bewildered by the sheer force of his assault. Her shock turns to horror as she sees Seo-jun on the ground, heavily injured from her counterattack. Panicked, she realizes she instinctively used her full B-rank power and rushes to his side. He brushes off her concern with a laugh, casually admitting that he lost this round. His nonchalant attitude leaves her speechless, especially his implication that he could win in the future. He thoughtfully acknowledges the vast difference between fighting monsters and a skilled hunter, leaving her to process his incredible potential. As he reflects on his long road to becoming a pro, his phone buzzes, interrupting his thoughts. He glances at the screen, a smirk forming as he confirms his lecture progress increased just as he planned. Turning back to Seo-yoon, he compares his training to gaining game experience and asks about her schedule. He boldly proposes they continue sparring regularly whenever they aren't raiding dungeons. His sincere dedication impresses Seo-yoon, who decides his strange request is worth considering. Now fully on board, she agrees to help him train and even offers him the entire prize money if he wins. The mention of a cash prize catches him completely by surprise, as he hadn't realized there was one. She racks her brain, trying to recall the exact amount of the tournament's grand prize. Learning it's $100,000, his eyes gleam with greed as he imagines a legendary spear he could afford. His demeanor shifts entirely as he leans in with fiery intensity, demanding to know the tournament date. He learns the tournament is in 2 weeks, his eyes blazing with a newfound money-fueled fire. Without missing a beat, he asks for sandbags before trying to rip a block out of the floor. Seo-yoon watches in horror as he begins lifting the massive floor piece like a weight. Completely defeated by his absurdity, she directs him to the actual training equipment. He enthusiastically thanks her, now fully committed to winning the $100,000 prize. After 2 weeks of intense money-driven training, the day finally arrives. He arrives at the bustling tournament venue, taking in the lively atmosphere. Carrying his weapon case, he looks slightly overwhelmed by the scale of the event. He nervously navigates the unexpectedly large crowd gathered for the competition. Nearby, a man explains the event's importance to onlookers, who find his unsolicited commentary amusing. Cutting through the crowd, he asks a guide for directions to the player waiting room. Meanwhile, another participant is frozen with anxiety, unsure of what to do. His anxiety spikes as he's surrounded by intimidating contestants, feeling too timid to even move. His eyes widen at the sight of their sparkling, high-end equipment, wondering how much it all costs. The sheer muscle and unwavering confidence of the other participants only adds to his sense of dread. Realizing every academy sent their best, his gaze lands on a surprisingly out-of-place contestant. He's completely baffled by the sight of a participant with a shabby spear and a jacket for a holder. The surrounding contestants begin to whisper, mocking his peasant-like appearance and speculating he's from a no-name academy. Though he hears every word, Seo-jun coolly ignores them, but the mockers notice he's just staring at a blank screen. The nervous onlooker concludes that this strange participant is completely out of his depth and should just go home. The anxious onlooker has a sudden realization, seeing Seo-jun's behavior as a classic ploy to avoid social awkwardness. Believing Seo-jun is also a lonely solo participant, he feels a strong sense of pity for his supposed comrade. While a one-sided bond forms in the onlooker's mind, Seo-jun is just confused by the strange, sympathetic stare. Mustering his courage, the onlooker approaches and greets Seo-jun, who looks up from his screen. He introduces himself as Lee Mingi, a fellow cadet, prompting Seo-jun to state his own name in return. Just as Mingi asks to sit, a hulking contestant stomps over, angrily accusing them of causing trouble. Mingi nervously identifies the brute as Jang Dukchul, a top prospect from Gochuri Academy known for his axe and raw power. The hot-headed Dukchul aggressively confronts another participant, demanding he leave immediately. His target, Lee Chulman of Mint Academy, coolly fires back, refusing to be intimidated by the muscle-bound fighter. Mingi continues his unsolicited play-by-play, explaining Chulman's twin dagger style, leaving Seo-jun baffled by the sudden exposition. Seo-jun internally labels Mingi an exposition character, while Mingi nervously claims he's just curious. Their argument escalates until Dukchul roars at them to be quiet. The commotion finally draws the attention of a sharply dressed, red-haired contestant. This newcomer, Lee Junwan, coldly reminds the bickering fighters that they aren't alone. His single comment silences the room, prompting Mingi to identify him as the tournament's guaranteed winner. Mingi explains Junhwan is so powerful he only joined last minute because of an issue at his academy. The conversation turns to the legendary Sword Saint, a name Seo-jun doesn't seem to recognize. Mingi then whispers a rumor that the Sword Saint's granddaughter Seo-yoon tried to scout Junhwan, stunning Seo-jun. While Mingi believes Junhwan rejected the offer out of sheer confidence, Seo-jun suspects a different reason. Across the room, Junhwan seethes with contempt, crushing a can in frustration at having to fight lowly opponents. Junhwan scoffs internally, revealing he's only competing to fulfill his uncle's wish. He clenches his fist, now regretting that he didn't accept a certain girl's proposal. A flashback shows him arrogantly rejecting Seo-yoon's offer, a decision he now laments. His bitter thoughts are cut short as a sudden presence catches his attention. Junhwan's eyes land on Seo-jun, immediately dismissing him as a worthless peasant. Seo-jun, however, is simply calculating how much experience he'd gain from fighting the so-called prodigy. An announcement calls the cadets to prepare as the first match is about to commence. Mingi jolts in surprise, realizing it's finally time for the tournament to begin. Seo-jun reflects on his 2 weeks of training, noting he didn't feel a sudden power-up despite his progress. As he walks toward the arena, he understands that true growth is a subtle, yet significant accumulation of small gains. He remembers how dungeon raids and sparring with Seo-yoon supplemented his training. Clenching his fist, he feels confident he can handle any monster or duel that comes his way. With the $100,000 prize on his mind, he strides forward as the first match is announced. The first event is revealed to be a dungeon maze race, leaving Seo-jun standing alone and confused at the entrance. A system window appears, displaying his impressive progress rates from his legendary mentors. As the crowd roars with excitement, the official announcement declares the start of the tournament's first round. Meanwhile, in the stands, a photographer enthusiastically waves down his senior colleague. The senior complains about their corner seats before accidentally bumping into the person next to him. The person he bumped is Seo-yoon in disguise, who quickly apologizes for the minor collision. Though he finds her familiar, the senior dismisses it and turns his attention back to the tournament. The first round is a dungeon maze race, where cadets must escape without fighting each other, leaving them to ponder the true objective. The real challenge is soon revealed. Hunting monsters within the maze provides crucial hints to the exit. The cadets quickly understand this is a test of their most essential dungeon raiding skills. Back in the stands, the junior photographer frantically directs his senior's attention to the Jumbotron. On screen, Junhwan unleashes a devastating flurry of crimson slashes, overwhelming a massive beast. His cold, focused eyes reveal a level of power far beyond any other participant. The photographers are stunned by his skill, admitting that even to a novice, his talent is undeniable. Seo-yoon calmly identifies the prodigy as Lee Junhwan, the tournament's supposed guaranteed winner. Her calm demeanor breaks as she privately wonders why someone of his caliber is even competing. She quickly ducks out of sight, desperate to avoid being discovered as the Sword Saint's granddaughter. Back in the stands, Seo-yoon can't help but wonder how Seo-jun is faring in the maze. Meanwhile, Seo-jun tests a wall with his rake, finding it surprisingly sturdy. He confirms the maze is designed to prevent contestants from simply smashing their way out. Resigned, he decides to solve it properly, wishing he'd taken a lecture on labyrinths. He considers his options, placing a hand on the wall to begin his navigation. While he could use immense power to break through, he recalls a potential tip from his mentor, Theseus. With a new strategy in mind, he focuses on the path ahead. He arrives at a three-way fork, the first real test of his navigation skills. Seo-jun decides to use the simple wall-following method, but knows the word eventually is the catch. Committing to his plan, he places his hand on the left wall and proceeds with glowing determination. As Seo-jun follows the wall, a strange, indescribable feeling suddenly washes over him. He can't explain the sensation, but it's an undeniable pull as he stares down the sterile hallway. His plan to take the left path is suddenly overridden by a powerful intuition telling him to go the other way. He pauses, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face as he considers this new impulse. Shrugging off his confusion, he abandons his original plan and changes direction. With a sigh of resignation, Seo-jun decides to put his faith in this newfound sixth sense. A system window appears, confirming his intuition is a skill developed from his legendary mentor's lectures. His eyes narrow with suspicion, finding the ease of his journey a bit too weird. Announcements of other cadets being eliminated confirm they are encountering monsters and fighting. Yet Seo-jun continues down a suspiciously empty corridor, wondering why nothing is happening to him. He has a startling realization. His intuition might be actively helping him avoid the monsters. Seo-jun speculates that if he masters this skill, he might even be able to predict his opponent's moves. His thoughts are interrupted as another cadet suddenly taps him on the shoulder from behind. A nervous-looking boy warns him about monsters, but Seo-jun casually brushes off his concern. Seo-jun is annoyed to have run into this particular cadet, who questions his confident stride. The boy is shocked by Seo-jun's carefree approach, declaring that wandering aimlessly is a recipe for disaster. He tries to explain the classic wall-following method, but Seo-jun finds it far too slow for his liking. As the boy insists he'll get lost, Seo-jun suggests they part ways, questioning why he's being followed in the first place. The cadet boldly declares them comrades in a similar situation, leaving Seo-jun utterly baffled. He explains that he saw Seo-jun was alone and decided to approach him, revealing his motive from the waiting room. The cadet proposes they team up, labeling them both as the weak ones, much to Seo-jun's disbelief. While Seo-jun admits his appearance isn't intimidating, the boy excitedly offers to show him something special. He proudly whips out his phone, revealing a picture of his younger sister, but Seo-jun is utterly unmoved. After a brief, awkward compliment, Seo-jun tries to escape, only for the desperate cadet to grab his leg. Annoyed by his tenacity, Seo-jun listens as the boy insists that teaming up is their only hope for survival. The boy passionately argues against traveling alone, but Seo-jun reminds himself that this is a competition with a huge prize. Seo-jun cynically questions if the boy's family is here to support him, given his fear of being alone. The cadet's cheerful demeanor fades as he reveals his parents are gone, leaving only him and his sister. This revelation triggers a flash of Seo-jun's own lonely past, reminding him of his difficult upbringing. Struck by a sudden sense of empathy, Seo-jun tightens his grip on his weapon, his resolve hardening. The boy instantly regrets his words, frantically apologizing for making the atmosphere uncomfortable. Seo-jun finally speaks, acknowledging that they are indeed comrades in a similar situation. Relenting, Seo-jun allows the boy to follow him, but his expression suggests there's a catch. He then clarifies that while they can travel together, the first-place prize money is his alone. With that declaration, Seo-jun turns and walks away, leaving the other cadet to make his choice. The boy scrambles to catch up, shocked by the incredible speed at which Seo-jun is moving. Seo-jun cheekily reminds him that he was the one who wanted to follow, much to the other cadet's frustration. The cadet is baffled by Seo-jun's unwavering confidence, questioning how he can navigate without a second thought. He speculates that Seo-jun moves as if he already knows the path, though he quickly dismisses the impossible thought. Just as the boy catches his breath, he realizes Seo-jun has led them directly to a dead end. The cadet smugly points out the dead end, but Seo-jun calmly approaches the wall, completely unfazed. To the boy's astonishment, Seo-jun simply pushes the wall, revealing it to be a hidden door. The cadet can only stare in utter disbelief as Seo-jun casually steps through the secret passage. An announcement declares the first maze breaker has finished, shattering the previous record and stunning the entire stadium. The audience erupts in confusion, speculating on the winner's identity since the top-ranked cadet is still inside. In the crowd, Seo-jun's eyes widen as she connects the dots, a single name forming on her lips. Seo-jun's new companion is equally stunned, his mind struggling to process the impossible feat he just witnessed. The stadium screen confirms the shocking truth, displaying Kim Seo-jun's name as the first-place winner. Seo-jun nonchalantly exits the maze, slightly disappointed that his intuition led him away from any monsters. His companion is left in a state of shock, realizing he stumbled into victory simply by following Seo-jun. The boy reflects on his simple plan to team up and escape the maze together. The results screen reveals he placed second, just 2 seconds behind Seo-jun, thanks to his lucky encounter. Back in the waiting room, cadets gossip about the unknown winner from a no-name academy, while Mingi sits beside him in a daze. The highly touted cadet, Lee Junhwan, is visibly irritated after unexpectedly placing third. Junhwan gets up and confronts Seo-jun, who looks up at him, puzzled by the sudden attention. The entire room goes quiet, watching as the pre-competition favorite faces the mysterious first-place winner. Seo-jun feels the weight of Junhwan's gaze, wondering why he's being sized up so intently. Junhwan's eyes narrow with contempt as he silently judges the person who beat him. With a dismissive smirk, Junhwan turns his back on Seo-jun, deciding he's not worth his time. He walks away, concluding that Seo-jun's victory was nothing more than a lucky break. The other cadets sneer, dismissing Seo-jun's victory as a fluke from a no-name academy. An official steps forward, capturing everyone's attention as he prepares to announce the second round. He announces a one-on-one tournament where weapons are forbidden, but mana-enhanced combat is fair game. With 32 cadets remaining, Seo-jun mentally prepares for a standard tournament bracket. But just as the matchups are about to be revealed, Mingi suddenly raises his hand with an announcement of his own. He boldly declares his intention to forfeit, leaving Seo-jun utterly baffled by the sudden withdrawal. Elsewhere, Seo-jun breathes a sigh of relief, having narrowly avoided being recognized in the stadium. Her cover is blown when a spectator recognizes her, reminding her of her earlier shocked outburst over Seo-jun's win. Deciding to wait out the commotion, she glances at the tournament bracket and is immediately confused by what she sees. She questions why the bracket starts at the semifinals, learning the shocking truth. Almost every other contestant has forfeited. Seo-jun overhears two men complaining that the mass forfeits have ruined their gambling fun. They agree that betting on the favorite Lee Junhwan is pointless due to the miserable odds. Suddenly, a cloaked figure slams down a briefcase, placing a $1 million bet on Kim Seo-jun. The gamblers are left speechless by the audacious bet on the supposed underdog. Hiding nearby, Seo-jun is equally shocked, wondering who would bet so much on a lucky punk. The mysterious bettor emanates a powerful aura, leaving Seo-jun to question their true identity. Meanwhile, Seo-jun sits in the waiting room, already bored by the lack of real competition. The scene flashes back to Mingi's official forfeit in front of the remaining cadets. Mingi explains to a confused Seo-jun that forfeiting is common, since only the top-ranked are expected to win. The other cadets reveal the true reason for their fear. Junhwan is known for seriously injuring opponents, a risk not worth taking. Another cadet chimes in, reasoning they'd just be stepping stones for the elite academies anyway. A wave of resignation washes over the group, concluding that forfeiting is the smarter choice. This sparks a domino effect, with one cadet after another dropping out of the competition. The flashback ends, revealing the mass exodus that Seo-jun and the twins witnessed. Now only 5 cadets remain, with one loudly lamenting the lack of grit among the younger generation. The first round bracket pits Seo-jun against the boisterous cadet, Jang Dukchul. The second round matchup is set, with Lee Junhwan facing off against one of the twins, Lee Mingi. The other twin grabs Seo-jun, wondering if his maze victory guarantees a win if he makes it to the finals. Seo-jun calmly asks why he's trembling, completely oblivious to the boy's sheer terror. The terrified twin reminds Seo-jun he's up against the infamous Junhwan, but Seo-jun is unimpressed by his panic. Seo-jun questions the twin's fear of losing before the fight even begins. The terrified twin suggests that Seo-jun should also forfeit to avoid Junhwan. The twin admits he can't bring himself to forfeit as an official summons Seo-jun for his match. As he heads to the arena, Seo-jun advises the twin to see his own fight through to the end. The twin suddenly grabs Seo-jun's wrist, stopping him in his tracks. He desperately holds on, trying to get Seo-jun to understand his fear. The boy asks if Seo-jun feels any concern whatsoever about the upcoming fights. Seo-jun smirks, revealing his only thought is how much experience he'll gain from his opponent. He confidently walks off, leaving the twin baffled by his strange and nonchalant attitude. The scene cuts to the packed stadium, where an announcer hypes up the second round of the tournament. The announcer hypes up the mysterious maze winner, Seo-jun, who casually waves to the crowd. His opponent, Yang Dukchul, confidently declares that Seo-jun's lucky streak is about to end. The self-proclaimed giant of the axe from Gachuri Academy boasts that tricks are useless against his raw power. He mockingly suggests Seo-jun's victory was actually a stroke of bad luck, leading him straight to this fight. Seo-jun's cool reply about who is truly unlucky enrages Dukchul just as the match officially begins. Furious at the disrespect, Dukchul charges forward, promising to make Seo-jun pay for his words. Seo-jun simply smirks, completely unfazed by the incoming aggressive assault. Back in the waiting room, the terrified twin watches the match begin on a monitor, his anxiety palpable. He nervously wonders if Seo-jun can actually handle the fight he's just walked into. His focus quickly shifts as he realizes he has his own problem to worry about, the intimidating Lee Junhwan. The twin is consumed by dread, knowing his next opponent is the infamous Lee Junhwan. Seo-jun's parting words echo in his mind, urging him to fight without fear of losing. Overwhelmed by frustration, he clenches his fist, torn by Seo-jun's advice. His thoughts spiral, convinced that cadets from unknown academies are no match for the elite representatives. the pressure becomes too much for the other twin, who abruptly decides to forfeit his own match. His thoughts are interrupted by the announcer's shocked declaration, Seojun's match is already over. The giant screen flashes with Seojun's face, confirming his victory over the fallen Dukchul. Junhwan scoffs, dismissing the entire match as nothing more than weaklings playing amongst themselves. A close-up reveals his intense gaze, filled with nothing but scorn for his supposed competition. He then turns his intimidating glare towards Mingi, who rises nervously as their match is called. Mingi stammers, sweating profusely as he faces his intimidating opponent. Junhwan's eyes blaze with fury, realizing Mingi is about to forfeit just like the others. The scene flashes back to Seojun's fight, showing Dukchul unleashing a powerful axe swing. The announcer praises Dukchul's incredible strength as Seojun casually sidesteps the attack. Everyone realizes Seojun's maze victory was no fluke as he effortlessly dodges every move. Dukchul grows desperate, realizing Seojun is parrying his best attacks with a mere wooden stick. Exhausted and confused, Dukchul can't comprehend why his overwhelming power is having no effect. Pushed to his limit, Dukchul unleashes his ultimate skill, a massive glowing axe attack. Instead of dodging, Seojun calmly meets the colossal weapon with his simple stick. Dukchul stares in utter shock as his ultimate weapon shatters into pieces from the impact. Dukchul slumps to the ground, completely stunned and defeated by Seojun's single decisive blow. The announcer declares the match was over in the blink of an eye, as Dukchul trembles in disbelief. With his face on the jumbotron, Seojun is declared the winner, having bested the giant in a pure contest of strength. But instead of celebrating, Seojun sighs in disappointment after checking his phone. A system window reveals the fight only provided a minuscule increase to his lecture progress rates. He walks off, frustrated that he came for a challenge but found only forfeits and minimal gains. Worse yet, his free training pass is expiring soon, and at this rate he'll never finish his lectures. With no other choice, Seojun becomes determined to win the tournament prize money to fund his progress. Mingi runs up to him, amazed by his strength, only for Seojun to coolly ask if he ever claimed to be weak. Before Mingi can recover from the shock, an official arrives to announce that the second match is about to begin. The official calls out the names of the next two combatants, a nervous Mingi and a brooding Junhwan. Junhwan rudely shoves past Mingi, dismissing him as nothing more than a pest in his way. As Junhwan departs, Seojun stops Mingi, reminding him of their shared experience in the maze. Mingi confesses he felt a strange connection to Seojun, experiencing both joy and envy at his victory. Seojun drops his confident facade, admitting he sees himself as just an unlucky person with no real talent. Inspired, Mingi clenches his fist, declaring his motivation is to become a brother his little sister can be proud of. When the official calls his name again, a newly determined Mingi cheerfully responds that he's on his way. Seojun offers a simple word of encouragement, telling the now resolved Mingi to do his best. A small, knowing smile appears on Seojun's face as he watches the inspired cadet run off. The arena's jumbotron lights up with their match details, as Seojun sets his sights on meeting Mingi in the finals. Mingi tries to build his confidence in the arena, but Junhwan scoffs at his self-encouragement. Junhwan snaps, irritated by Mingi's quiet mumbling before the match even starts. He complains about being forced to participate, his frustration palpable as the referee begins the briefing. Junhwan internally dismisses his new opponent, seeing him as nothing more than a child. His intense glare radiates a crushing pressure, freezing Mingi in his tracks. Junhwan confidently assesses his opponent, already sensing his weakness without a single move being made. He mentally categorizes Mingi as helpless prey, a creature born to be consumed. In his mind, Junhwan is the apex predator, and Mingi is simply fodder for a true talent like him. He glares, convinced that this lucky brat needs a harsh lesson about his proper place. Junhwan's anger boils over, believing he's far superior to the other competitors in this joke of a tournament. Despite his trembling hands, Mingi musters a look of fierce determination, ready to face his opponent. Junhwan seethes with contempt, utterly disgusted by the sight of his new challenger. He impatiently urges the referee to start, internally questioning if this lowly pest actually believes he can win. As the announcer calls the start of the match, Mingi nervously steels himself, drawing inspiration from Seojun's victory. Junhwan scoffs at the proceedings, convinced there's no reason to prolong such a pathetic tournament. The moment the match begins, he explodes forward with blinding speed, intending to finish the fight in a single flash. Junhwan lands a brutal, precise strike, sending a shockwave through Mingi's defense. The announcer marvels at Junhwan's immediate onslaught, while casting doubt on Mingi's ability to withstand the pressure. With a cold glare, Junhwan prepares his next move, believing a pest should be treated as such. He unleashes another powerful attack, intent on forcing Mingi to accept his place as insignificant fodder. The brutal impact sends Mingi's glasses flying as he reels from the powerful blow. He collapses to his knees, and the announcer speculates that the match is already over. Staring up at his opponent, Mingi is crushed by the overwhelming feeling of imminent defeat. He admits to himself that he is completely outmatched, with no real chance of winning. Despair sets in as he remembers his vow to his sister and his dream of becoming strong like Seo-jun. With tears in his eyes, he desperately clings to the image of Seo-jun's incredible strength. To Junhwan's surprise, Mingi staggers back to his feet, refusing to stay down. A new resolve forms in his eyes. He just needs to land a single hit, no matter how small. Gathering all his remaining energy, he prepares one last, desperate attack. Junhwan watches with cold indifference, completely unfazed by Mingi's final defiant strike. The sharp sound of impact echoes through the stadium, marking the end of the desperate struggle. The announcer confirms the inevitable, declaring Junhwan the winner as Mingi lies defeated on the ground. Spectators in the crowd murmur amongst themselves, agreeing that the outcome was never in doubt. While they acknowledge Junhwan's skill, a single drop of blood trickles down his cheek, revealing an unexpected truth. Junhwan's eyes widen in sheer disbelief, completely stunned that he was actually struck. He looks out into the distance, his mind reeling as he processes that the blow somehow landed. Staring down at his fallen opponent, Junhwan's victory feels tainted by the single successful hit. His eye glows with cold fury as he scoffs at the audacity of the pest who dared to touch him. Elsewhere, a mocking thought surfaces, questioning Junhwan's superiority for getting hit by such a weak opponent. Junhwan turns away, his pride shattered by the very idea that an elite like him could be harmed by a nobody. Junhwan unexpectedly tells the referee he's forfeiting, leaving the official utterly confused. His pride wounded, he delivers a vicious kick to the already defeated Mingi. He internally seethes, having had enough of what he considers a joke of a tournament. His frustration erupts into a furious tirade, belittling the entire competition for accepting weaklings. Ignoring the referee's warnings, Junhwan continues his rant, questioning the very system that allows such cadets to compete. He then pins the unconscious Mingi to the ground with his foot in a show of utter contempt. Looming over his victim, Junhwan scoffs at those who don't know their proper place. Out of nowhere, Seo-jun intervenes, landing a powerful blow that sends Junhwan reeling. Seo-jun presses his advantage, admitting he had planned to wait for the finals but has now changed his mind. With a look of cold fury, he decides that Junhwan deserves to be dealt with right now.